this and get the show started. I just got word right now that it was For Justice that just won over Infusion Y. That was the team that was playing parallel to the Snow Tsunami versus Rebel Lion matchup. So if anybody was interested in that, For Justice 2-0. Congratulations, moving on. But right back to this game. SK Gaming versus the Untouchables, and it's going to be a Sky ban right off the bat.
You know, Sky, we saw a lot of Sky recently. She's been very dominant, like whether up in lane or up in jungle, but it also comes down to like the kind of composition that you want to run. And knowing SK Gaming, they do like those strong melee bruisers up front. They feel very dominant and very comfortable with them. And this is something they're probably going to try and execute, especially if they take this Catherine first.
Alright, well, Catherine first. We haven't seen a lot of Catherine lately.
Well, Catherine, the thing is, you always notice that Jetpacks picks up Catherine. I haven't seen too many other roamers played out of him should he be playing a roamer. And I feel like if you're going to put him on the roam position and you're going to put him on that one specific pick, a lot of teams are going to start picking this up.
Alright, that makes a lot of sense. Cruel, first pick up here for the Intouchables. And that's a nice little logo they've got going on. I like it. Alright, well, it's going to be the Fortress paired up with the Cruel. Pretty aggressive combination here. This should allow Cruels to be, you know, fairly effective from the early game all the way through that late game. We'll see how they want to round it out here. It looks like highlighted on that Scarf, they might go with that typical kind of Cruel Scarf combo.
But the thing is, it's very hard to get Scarf when you're going up against SK Gaming. This is one of the most well-known heroes that they like to play with and execute. They just love those mages. They love that late game scaling, and to be able to like play smart in terms of like knowing their positions correctly, they can poke very well.
Definitely. Well, Scarf is the pickup here, as you did say, and they'll have to go ahead and rethink what they want to plug in as the last pick. It looks like Glaive's going to be the last pick for SK Gaming. We'll see how Untouchables want to round this out.
I really like what they're highlighting if they do choose to pick up that Celeste. However, they don't. What they're going to have to deal with now is that the Untouchables do lack a lot of range going up against the other team. They don't have that specific poke that SK Gaming has, where you have Scarf always standing in that back line, just shooting off Spitfires, and you have that Glaive to be able to make and set up plays. Combined with that Catherine, Glaive doesn't have to worry about too much about peel. The team knows that exactly every time that Cruel does jump in, or every time that Untouchables try to mix the play, Catherine will be there for that CC. So Glaive can feel free to like move on, just try and dive into that deep line and make a play on Vox.
Alright guys, we'll keep your eyes on it. We've loaded into the Halcyon Fold, so let's go ahead and jump into this game. And with that, we'll throw it to our casters, Action Jackson and Scoundrel. Take it away, guys.
Alright, this is going to be an awesome series. I'm a little bit sad that Cream isn't playing for SK, but I guess he's gone off. We'll have to see what happens with these guys as we move forward. Catherine, not a particularly common pick here in EU at the very least. A lot more common over in NA. We did see one yesterday in EU, though. And Scoundrel. Looking at these compositions, we got some more Kroll. Nothing too surprising here.
I'd love to tell you, Jackson, but unfortunately my client bugged and my game hasn't loaded. So I'm going to quickly get on and fix that, and hopefully you can guys keep the guys updated on the information right now.
All right, I'll just do both color and play-by-play. That's fine. I can handle that. So SK right now, they're rotating all three members up towards the lane. Worth noting the Raph is a laner, and they find that afterburn. Quick pickup for these guys, finding themselves the first blood of the map at exactly 1 minute, or at least what appeared to be exactly 1 minute on my screen. So very, very fast first blood here. You're also seeing them moving down towards the shop. They are going to have to try and back away here, though, as Luck is taking a lot of damage. He does have the goop to get that slow Raph rotating in. Doesn't have the afterburn energy, at least for the time being. Can't keep this fight going. You're in. Excellent.
I'm in, yep. Just had to hard reset the application, and now I'm ready to view the rifts. So here we go. Into it. Yeah, we just saw a very aggressive jungle push there. I did just catch the end of that. Looks like they're going to go and take some of their back camps off the back, though.
Yeah, so far, not too much crazy going on. We're not seeing an invade off the back of that aggression from SK, so they're just playing it safe. Obviously, Illohook did struggle a little bit in that fight, so it makes sense for him to play it a little bit safe moving forward. We've got the rotate coming up, but the scout trap spots out the Fortress and Kroll, so they're just going to have to back away for now.
Yeah, it looks like I'm potentially going to meet at this middle item shop, but 3 members of TTO going to back away here. SK, they're playing it a little bit more defensively. They're not going to get too aggressive considering they have a wave with Glaive up there. Raph on that Glaive, just pushing that wave ever so slowly. Vox now going to make his way back just to deal with that pushing minion wave. Looks like TTOU, they're going to group up as a 3 here. Maybe trying to catch Raph off guard.
Yeah, but unfortunately they're not going to be able to. It's very difficult, actually, and surprisingly difficult, I might argue, to catch a Glaive out when he's playing lane, just because after burning back towards your turret, I mean, you can basically go from the central point in lane to almost your turret. It's a very long-range dash, and it really can't help those situations when you're trying to get ganked by the enemy team. Right now, the Untouchables, they do spot out Raph and Jetpacks, attempting to steal away the camp, and they are going to find it for themselves, so the steal was denied, and looks like SK are going to have to back off a little bit. Jetpack's got to be careful here about maybe face-checking this push. In fact, is going to pop that scout trap. Easily denied by Bad Blood with the speed boost from his perk. And since that first blood that we saw coming through from SK, they've had a bit of a tougher time keeping up the aggression.
No, absolutely, and I think it's just in part due to this roaming gank squad from TTOU. They are just moving as a 3, and they're going to get caught out in the jungle this time. And they're basically pushing the wave in lane, then allowing Vox to return to lane when it pushes back towards them. And in the meantime, running around as a 3. You can see there Harry Mal just being as aggressive as possible. And like you said, it is very difficult to catch out a lane Glaive. He is going to try and roam down, though, as it's been very aggressive from here. They might get caught out.
Yeah, easy stun coming through from Jetpacks onto Noilette. He's going to be able to find that kill with Illo Hook and the burn damage. Bad Blood had used Spectral Smite to guarantee stealing away the back camp. And in actuality, I think he might have been better off saving it for the fight, which was likely going to come. But I guess maybe they didn't think Harimau had time to rotate down. So, very interesting fight there. Bad Blood now going to get jumped on by 2 members of SK. He doesn't quite get stunned up inside of the goop, but he wants to turn this one around. That's the weakness stack, stacking up to Illo Hook. Is this going to be enough? The Smite should be able to pick up the kill from this point on, but he's actually just saving that, so maybe he can turn on to Jetpacks a bit later. The burn damage not going to come through Jetpacks. He wants this merciless pursuit. We've got the reflection coming through from the bubble, but it's not going to be enough. Now Raph making his way down here. Bad Blood is going to go down, but he trades for Jetpacks. Very nice play there, coming through from Bad Blood, staying alive for a ridiculously long time given the circumstances, picking up a return kill for his team.
Yeah, they were very deep in the SK side jungle, and Glaive able to respond very quickly. And obviously, you saw him move down from that lane. But yeah, it was super interesting. I'm liking this jungle Scarf just because it does keep Scarf a little bit safer, I suppose, in some ways. And you always have that safety of the Glaive in lane. Interested to see that Glaive is obviously going for that full weapon power at this point. He's practically there just to provide a threat to Harimau on this Vox. And then you're just going to try and buff the gold income of Scarf by keeping him safe and attempting to pick up kills in the smaller skirmishes.
Yeah, and actually I like this adaptation, just looking at the compositions too, because Illo Hook, if he were in lane, like you said, is immobile, does sometimes struggle, but especially so against the Kroll Fortress combination. Fortress right now, though, very far out of position. Raph with the quick rotate down is going to find that kill for his team. 4 for 2 right now, SK taking the lead. They might be able to go for the gold mine off the back of that pickup as well, so really leveraging every advantage they can right now.
I'm going to say, Raph picking up very early travel boots here, just to allow him to rotate that much quicker, because they know how...
Oh, wow, Harimau, he was
Okay.
under his turret and still got picked up. Raph with a very nice afterburn into the wall to guarantee that he didn't knock him away. The follow-up damage from Illo Hook, big at this point, so nice kill coming through from SK yet. Again, they're definitely setting the pace for this game.
Absolutely, and I think it's because they've got those early boots on Raph. He's just allowed him to sprint down every time from lane, and obviously got the travel boots on Scarf as well. So it's a very mobile team right now, so they can react very easily to things happening just lower than the lane. You know, a lot of these skirmishes are happening around that middle portion of the jungle. So the SK team is super mobile, and they're able to negotiate the map very, very quickly.
Yeah, that is a very, very good point here. And looking across the board, Harimau definitely struggling a little bit. He's actually behind Raph in CS. Died twice. You know, this Vox is going to be quite delayed in getting to his power spike later on in the game. We'll have to see if SK can keep this momentum moving forwards, or if the Untouchables will be able to pull back a little bit as their later game carry in that Vox turns on a little bit. So far, definitely looking pretty touchable, though, I gotta be honest.
Yeah, they're definitely not intouchable at this
Whoa!
point. SK
Health's
jetpacks.
hard. They're using it onto jetpacks. Jetpacks, he is bleeding right now. Could go down to that damage over time effect, but I don't think he is going to. We've already seen Bad Blood fall. Jetpacks playing with fire on the front line, but he is going to bait in Harimau to stay in the fight. The flames burn him down. You can see Noilette picks himself up. At least one kill on the backside, but Raph wants to get the ace for his team. Bad Blood has already respawned. It's not going to be the ace, but still a solid 3 kills in the duration of that fight for SK. Very convincing fight win, even though Jetpacks, I mean, maybe he didn't need to go quite so deep towards the end.
So this is just Scarf again in a nutshell. In most of these EU qualifier matches, we've seen him perform phenomenally. But I'm not sure Scarf has lost the game, or if he has, it's definitely close to a 90% win ratio for that champion in the games that we've streamed. I really like the Sorrow Blade first on Raph, and I think most people who play Glaive in sort of a weapon power mix will agree that Sorrow Blade generally is better for him when it comes to the mid game and trying to scale up, as opposed to something like a Tension Bow. It just means he's doing flat out more damage at this point in time, and can very easily deal with Vox and anyone else that tries to aggress onto him. Does look like we are potentially close to seeing the Broken Myth. Yep, Broken Myth has just been finished for Scarf here, so a small spike for him, and now I think SK will be very happy looking for fights.
Yeah, I would imagine so, and the Broken Myth is definitely an item that suggests SK wants to pick these elongated fights as soon as possible. The fights are likely going to be quite long ones, given the weakness stacks stacking up from Bad Blood and the fact that Harimau has a lot of mobility, so it's not a bad item to go for quite early here. But not having a Frostburn to kite out Bad Blood could bite Hello Hook a little bit in the butt moving forwards. We'll have to see if that actually ends up panning out. SK, they've got solid dominance over the map for the time being. Very good vision control, definitely something worth pointing out, the usage of scout traps on the map, especially towards their side to stop any invades coming through. Flare going to spot out Bad Blood as well. Raph, he's fishing around for that afterburn, can't quite find it yet though.
No, he was looking to isolate someone, obviously, with the use of that skill. And Jetpacks and Ilahok, they're going to be looking potentially to take the gold mine, and one way to force a fight is to go for something like this neutral objective. However, Glaive not there for
I
SK.
don't know if they really wanted to start this that quickly. Raph is starting to rotate down, though. Can they find the gold mine? Oh, it actually gets taken away by the blast tremor from Jetpacks. He's going to be leading the charge right now. Ilahok doing a good job of staying on the back line, dishing out the damage. Raph still healthy. The afterburn gonna lock up No Light, picks up the kill. It's an ace going across for SK, and they stole away the gold mine. Very big swing in the gold department.
Like I said, they had those power spikes, they were looking to fight, and the best way to force a fight, especially at this point in the game, is to go for something like the gold mine, which had stacked up quite nicely by that point. You know, essentially, Intouchables had to react, otherwise they were going to get so far behind. But they were walking right into SK's game plan, which was, you know, utilize the fact that their Scarf is super strong right now, utilize the fact that Raph is on this Glaive is very strong. You know, and Catherine is just doing the job that she needs to do. She's picked up a fountain that will give them sustainability throughout the fight. And she's there really to stun and then slow the attack speed of someone like Vox, and also Cruel, because you can see those Atlas pauldrons have been finished too. It's going to make Cruel slightly less effective every time those are used in teamfights.
Yeah, that is a very good point. I would agree with you there. Right now, Untouchables 4 kills to the 11 of SK. They're sitting about 3,000 gold, nearly 4,000 gold behind, in fact. So SK definitely dominating the early game. Bad Blood is going to get spotted out there, but Jetpacks can't quite close that distance as fast as he would like to. Looking across the items, we are seeing, like you said, that Fountain of Renewal for Jetpacks. It's also been picked up on the side of No Light, so both these teams have some of their core fighting items, but Bad Blood, he's basically only got the Shiver Steel right now, and I think that's a big point to look at here. You know, he's not going to be doing the same kind of damage you might like him to be doing at this point in the game.
He also needs a reflex block to deal with the Aftershock, because he needs to block that, otherwise their team are just going to lose these team fights every single time. Because you need to reduce the damage output of the Scarf, but you're not going to get 2 Scarf if you don't have something to block the Aftershock, or maybe to block the Catherine stun. Yeah, Afterburn, sorry. Or potentially block, you know, Catherine's stun too. So you need that ASAP. I do think he is building towards it, but he hasn't yet finished it, and we are 12 minutes into the game. But like you said, he has been pretty starved of gold up until this point, with only that Shiver Steel to show for it. So as it stands, Intouchables really not in a great place, and SK definitely happy.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, Bad Blood, worth noting specifically about his performance, he's 1 for 3 for 2 right now. He's not had that early game presence that we're so used to in Europe from Kroll, where you pair it up with something like a Fortress, and you can move at light speed to go in for these ganks. The problem is, the adaptation by SK and the sort of mental play here, using Raph in the lane instead of Lowhook, I think just completely shut down the plan and maybe caught Untouchables off guard slightly.
Oh, absolutely. With Raph being in Glaive on lane, they weren't expecting that going with the Scarf. They thought, oh, Vox versus Scarf, this should be fairly okay. We'll be able to get Vox towards this late game area. But no, Illo went into the jungle with the Scarf, and then they had Raph in the lane, which actually is a bit of a threat, especially when he's going sort of this full weapon power build that we've kind of seen him gravitate towards. So he's picked up his own Aegis, so he'll be able to block the stuns. But actually, Jetpacks.
Yeah, attack the pack, getting popped by No Light. Jetpacks is taking a lot of damage, but he's managing to stay into it for now. Raph trying to get onto Hari now. That's a lot of the damage from the side of the Untouchables gone. Illohook, though, he's focusing most of his attention onto No Light, and that's letting Bad Blood stack up those weakness stacks. This could actually be bad news for SK. You see Bad Blood still in quite a good position, gets his 600 damage Spectral Smite down. Raph can't contest. It's going to be a 2-for-2 trade. The Untouchables salvaging this game a little bit with that fight.
Yeah, definitely. 2 for 2 is not bad for the Untouchables at this point in time. Raph realistically has to be there to kite and force Bad Blood away from the Scarf, but unfortunately he was preoccupied elsewhere. Another big thing there was also the fact that the Eve of Harvest hadn't yet been completed. So Dragon's Breath, we've seen it like yesterday. Dragon's Breath, when you have the Eve of Harvest, can just get you back up to full life. And Scarf was holding on to his Dragon's Breath, but he didn't feel like he was in a good position to use it, and didn't have the Eve of Harvest, so he wasn't exactly going to regenerate too much life from that situation either. I think now that we see the Eve of Harvest completed on Scarf, we will see him be a little bit more liberal with that Dragon's Breath use, because it now has multiple facets that it can be used in, just to either regenerate life or obviously get that big team-wide damage off.
Yeah, that's a pretty good point here. I mean, even though that fight was good for the Untouchables, they need to keep this going. Goldmine started by them. They're going to be looking for a fight here, potentially. Raph just now rotating down. Can they find the steal? Not this time. Bad Blood going to be able to pick that one up. And actually, SK, I think they're looking a little bit apprehensive about going for the same kind of aggressive plays they were earlier in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially now, they need to be a little bit more careful of this Cruel, who's picked up his Aegis at this point, so he now does have that ability to use Reflex Block and can try and get through some of the CC that SK can put down. It also means that he's more of a threat to the Scarf at this point as well, so Scarf is going to have to be a little bit more careful as this game goes on. Catherine still sitting on just the Atlas Pauldrons there, also has that Fountain of Renewal still. Looks like we're going to see Tyrant's Monocle here finish for Glaive, so he's going to be picking up a little bit of critical strike for himself, as well as critical damage, just going for that flat weapon power, obviously not needing the attack speed, just maybe attempting to add to a bit of burst when he jumps onto the box.
Yeah, and it scales so well with the Glaive, of course, because when he crits, he deals that splash damage. If you fight in a choke point, it can be really game-deciding even. So here comes Jetpacks. He's going to be looking for that stun. Finds it onto No Light, not the best target as Bad Blood tries to go onto the back line here. That's going to be the afterburn. This is exactly what we talked about earlier, but here comes a wait for it. It silences all three members, but the AoE damage is ridiculous coming through from Raph and Illohook. Raph, he's trying to deal with Bad Blood right now. The weakness stacks not onto the Scarf. It's a clean ace almost coming through from SK, and with the Kraken spawning about a minute ago, they are easily going to be able to pick that up.
Yeah, Dragon's Breath not even needed to be used because of Raph, like we talked about, that Tyrant's Monocle coming straight into use and just splash damage across the whole of the Untouchables team. It was a beauty to behold at that point, and Illohook was safe right at the back line. The key point was in that fight was because the Aftershock did actually catch onto Cruel. He didn't manage to use his reflex block to block it. I think he actually blocked the Catherine stun. And so Aftershock knocked him all the way away, and that just kept Illohook on this Scarf very, very safe, because realistically, the only threat to Illohook through the majority of this fight will be Cruel. So if Cruel is managed to get knocked away by the Aftershock, then, or the Afterburn rather, he will be in a very safe position. And that's exactly how SK are going to be looking to play this.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to be able to block that. Maybe in fact, Crucible is actually picked up by No Light. So, they need to be activating those items at the right times. No Light's got to have his trigger finger ready. With the Kraken now pushing on the base of the Untouchables, it is time for them to try and defend here. Lots of damage onto the turrets coming through from Raph and Illohook. Illohook is well able to do so from a very safe distance. Makes it extremely difficult for the Untouchables to really get in position for the fight. Attack the back pop just to zone them out a little bit, but those wolves quickly dealt with. Kraken is quite low now. Raph getting stunned up here as well. Bad Blood might want to be looking for the fight. That's going to be no light knockback. Not going to have the afterburn available for Bad Blood if he keeps this going. But Hari now finding some nice damage off on the sideline. Just no one from SK able to get onto the priority target there. And, you know, not a bad push, but only really getting one turret off that Kraken is maybe a little bit less than SK would have liked.
So a couple of key items picked up for the Untouchables here, which is going to help them scale a little bit. We have got a 3-item spike here for Harimau. He hasn't got his own reflex block at this point. That's something pretty key to note because he is not going to be able to block anything like the aftershock. Why am I saying aftershock? Yeah,
Because it's shocking. When
I know it's
You're
shocking.
just like,
The
"Whoa."
afterburn, he can't block the afterburn right there from Glaive, but he's got a 3 damage item spike. He's got the alternating current, Eve of Harvest, and the broken myths. He's going to be outputting a fairly significant portion of damage. But we also see the Crucible finish by Fortress, so he is going to provide a team-wide reflex block. So he will be keeping his eye out to see if he can block anything for the Vox at this point in time.
All right, so we got to look at really what the Untouchables can do to get back into this game. They've got the Vox, obviously going to scale super well. At this point, sitting on 3 items, he is in that late game position. You know, he's got the damage, he's got the sustain to win these fights. I feel like the problem is that Raph is too big a threat, and the front line from Untouchables is too far behind.
Agreed.
They need to build more tank items. I feel like that's the key point here. We need to see Bad Blood being a bit tankier. I'm not sure I agree with the breaking point, but here comes Attack at the Pack. They are going to be looking for that fight. From Hell's Heart lands on the Raph, actually does force him to afterburn away this time, but Jetpacks, on the flip side, he is so tanky. He's easily able to play that frontline role. Hari now, he's got some good damage. There's a Blast Tremor, just stopping him from getting the Sonic Zoom back into the fight as Illohook tries to kite away here. No Light and Bad Blood. All of their initiation tools were used earlier on, and they couldn't stick to Raph to finish up the kill. They couldn't get onto Jetpacks because he's too tanky, and Illohook remains untouched after the fight. It's really not a great position for the Untouchables right now because they just can't stick on the right targets.
But honestly, that wasn't a bad fight for Intouchables if you looked at it in the grand scheme of things, considering how they were performing earlier to how they're performing now. They've actually clawed back their golden disadvantage and they're now sitting at just over 1k down, which is not too bad given that they were 4k down earlier in the game. And actually, Vox is really starting to hurt. He is really putting pressure onto something like Raph, who hasn't really built that tanky. He only has the Aegis, which is obviously what most DPSs would build for their form of protection. He's really gone down that full weapon power route, and he's suddenly paid the price. You saw that both aftershocks that we saw in that fight had to be used defensively, when realistically you don't either need to be using them for peel or you need to be using them to try and isolate someone from the side of Untouchables. Speaking of which, Untouchables being aggressive again around this Kraken, which has just respawned now.
Untouchables are certainly getting themselves good control of the map right now, and the flares aren't there from Jetpacks to spot out a lot of these positionings from Untouchables.
Agreed.
Illohook right now, he's going to have to run towards the enemy base. This is bad positioning from SK. Could get turned around. Jetpacks! Oh,
what a stun!
Lands the stun! Jetpacks is going to be trying to run point, though. Illohook manages to kite back. Bad Blood could follow up. Look at the damage. Raph doing some nice AoE, but actually it's only Illohook left alive. He's going to need to kite like he has never kited before, and I don't think he can. Harumau, he's looking for the kill. He finds it. It's actually the ace for Untouchables here. 21 minutes into the game, this Vox has turned on.
Exactly, Jackson. That's exactly why Intouchables are starting to do well now. They have got this Vox with the 3-item spike. Doesn't actually need his own reflex block because he is being provided that by the Crucible of the Fortress. And actually, realistically, they're spending a lot of their CC trying to deal with this Cruel, and for the most part, Vox is completely untouched. Now you're happy to see a very defensive, full weapon power Raph right now on this Glaive, and he is really starting to take the brunt of the damage from this Vox. He cannot go aggressive because Vox has got so much mobility now with that Sonic, and he's also got a lot of damage with the alternating current. Like we said, that 3 crystal power item spike is starting to hurt, and actually, these fights are becoming more and more elongated, and with the breaking point and with the Vox, they love the elongated fights, Jackson. They absolutely thrive in those situations.
I've got to agree with you, and right now I'm just really wishing Illohook had a Frostburn, because imagine if he had that, as he finished up the last fight, I mean, he had a lot of damage. He was able to get some distance, but he just couldn't get enough distance. With the Kraken now picked up by the Untouchables, though, they're looking to turn this game on its head. 22 minutes in, this is really the point that their late game composition likes to be at. Bad Blood trying to fish around for some kind of engagement, using his perk in the bush there. Kraken still pretty healthy too. Illohook not able to get the damage down that maybe he wants to. No Light is falling quite low though, and the Spitfires just keep coming. Wrath is going to be going for this one. Fortified health on No Light from the attack of the pack. No Light is buying time for this turret to go down, but I really feel like maybe they should just go for the kills. That's what they're going to turn and do now. Harry Mao trying to get onto jetpacks. There's a wait for it, silencing up Wrath, but the Kraken is not healthy enough for this push to continue. No Light trading his life there, I would argue kind of unnecessarily, but even still, huge push coming across from the Untouchables.
Exactly, they do manage to get the turret out of it, and even with No Light going down, he was tanking a huge amount of damage for a large portion of time, just to allow them to finish off that turret, and he will respawn within 30 seconds, and I don't think that SK can capitalize on the top of this with Kraken not having respawn. I'm going to get their back camps just to make sure they clear up the gold. The key point here is that because this is a full weapon powered glaive, you know, he does kind of thrive being able to burst someone. Now, we saw earlier in the game, he was able to burst very quickly, dealt with Vox, at least forced him away, he was a threat in these teamfights, but now he's not really tanky enough and not really doing enough damage, so he's not surviving, and neither is he killing anyone, so he's kind of entered this point where he's the utility afterburn, as we generally tend to see glaives go the later the game goes on. And to be honest, I just feel like this has gotten to a point where the composition from SK is just outclassed in terms of the damage output and the sustainability during teamfights.
Yeah, I mean, I almost feel like maybe getting some Dragon's Breaths off in these fights could be big for Illohook, but here comes another engagement. The From Hell's Heart misses by quite a large margin. Attack the Pack still chasing on to the SK lineup, though Harimau stunned up. Raph trying to get onto the back line, but now he needs to afterburn away yet again. No Light. He's going to fall on the front line. First blood of the fight going to SK. Bad Blood falling quite low here as well. Illohook picks it up. It's going to be the ace. SK, they might have been beaten down in the last few fights, but they've still got some gumption left. With all of these timers being 45 seconds or longer, we might just see them try and end the game.
They're just going to end the game. That was an awful, awful fight from the Untouchables. I have no idea where they tried to force it that hard. They just kept running through poke from the Spitfire. And again, the positioning from No Light, he's always too aggressive, trying to force things which shouldn't be forced. He goes down way too early, and then there's no Fountain, there's no Crucible. You lose all of these really big utility items when he goes down, and then it's just left up to Harimau and Bad Blood to try and carry these team fights, but it's just they just can't do it 2 versus 3. Just not going to happen. That was a completely unnecessarily forced fight. You don't need to be doing that as the composition from Untouchables. All you thrive on is using your movement speed, kiting back and forth, not running straight through on fire goops and taking Spitfires to the face. Sorry, that's not how you win the game. They were doing so well, and they just threw it with a terrible attempt at a forced team fight.
I've got to agree with you, to be honest. I really feel like the Untouchables had everything they needed at that point in the game to keep winning fights, managed to push on, and maybe even upset SK in the first map of the series. But maybe it just all went to their head. Maybe they got a little bit too confident, too overconfident, and you know, that's got to be a very crushing defeat. But it is worth noting that if they can, you know, rally themselves moving into Game 2 and hopefully a Game 3 for themselves, I think that Game 1 certainly showed they've got the potential to get the upset against SK. We're going to have to hear what Humanist and Rome think of that first game, because it was